What's good everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at 25 of the best action RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. So please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Starting off is Nioh, The World Ends With You. This is an action RPG that barely anybody played, but that doesn't mean it's not good. It's got a fantastic battle system, really cool anime aesthetics, really cool art style to it. I love what they tried to pull off with this game, and compared to its predecessor with The World Ends With You, it plays a lot better across the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, or PC. But yeah, it's actually a really fun game. It's got a really dope battle system, really different pins that you can equip, and different items that you can get, and the story is also really good, the voice acting is good, and the music is incredible as well. So if you haven't played Nioh, The World Ends With You, I think now is the time to get it done. Next up is Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age. This one is not a brand new title, but it's still extremely good. Now, the reason why I want to bring up this game is because this was almost, I wouldn't say the precursor to Xenoblade Chronicles combat, but it very much feels that way. I remember playing it back in the day and saying, okay, this is kind of like automated, but also at the same time has some really cool like turn-based type of things, but is also an action RPG at the same time. There's various elements that make Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age a lot of fun, and with a great price on the Nintendo Switch as well. So one of the things that I think that I like the most about this is the gambits and what you can do there, combined with the story. It's a little weird at first, kind of hard to get into completely, but once you actually take the time to understand everything and what this combat system can do, I think that you're going to be fully enthralled in it. And it still holds up even all these years later. This game is more than a decade and a half old, and it still holds up even still to this point. So check out Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age on the Nintendo Switch. Next up is Transistor. This is a indie RPG from SuperGiant Games, and what makes this one really cool is the story and the aesthetics. I think that the story and the aesthetics combined with the RPG gameplay, where it is a mix between what you can do kind of picking actions and picking turns, but then also at the same time doing real-time combat as well. So Transistor, to me, it's kind of a hybrid when it comes down to it, but I still put it in the action RPG realm. And it's one of those games, cheap, you can get it for a very good price, but once you go through with the story and the mood and kind of how they set everything up with this game, it really creates an experience that after you beat it, you're going to be like, wow, like this wasn't a AAA huge game or anything, but at the same time, it was still incredibly good. I think the battle system and how it evolves as you go along really does help out, and it has one of my favorite indie main characters too. I just love the design of her, and I think that this is one of those games that you can't miss if you haven't played it yet. Next up is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order on the Nintendo Switch. This is another game that kind of caught me in surprise when it was announced at the Game Awards a number of years back, because Marvel Ultimate Alliance brand has been dead for a very long time, and Nintendo kind of brought it back along with Koei Tecmo. So it's good to see that it's back and better than ever. I did enjoy the amount of variety with different characters. I mean, obviously it's Marvel, you're going to have Wolverine, you're going to have Spider-Man, you're going to have all sorts of characters. You have Gambit, you have a bunch of DLC packed into there, and the gameplay, what it really does is that it has a pretty deep leveling system and combat and skill trees for each character. So there's pretty much hundreds of hours of gameplay if you go with all the different bonus DLCs and everything, or if you just want to play through the game, that's fine. But I think that what makes this game really dope too is the local co-op and online co-op options. So if you want to play with a friend, it gets more difficult. You can play local. I think that local is one of those lost arts for RPGs. So this is one of the few RPGs out there, action RPGs, that have local co-op. So this game does it. So if you want a really cool action RPG that combines all of your favorite Marvel characters in there and also some dope local play or online play, check out Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order. Next up is Ys Origin. This is an old school game on the Nintendo Switch, but it's still a very, very good one as well. And we go back with the doll all the way to where when it really began. And I think that Ys Origin is one of those games that once you kind of get past it not being that big AAA type of game and you really look at it for the core combat in the game and the leveling and what it does and the smoothness of the controls, it is by far one of the best action RPGs on the Nintendo Switch, and it has a great story to boot. The Ys games always do a great job with the story and kind of the pacing. I think that's what makes Ys such a staple when it comes to action RPGs. The pacing, the story, the combat, the leveling, the upgrades, everything just kind of comes together in a very nice package for players out there. So if you have not tried out Ys Origin on the Nintendo Switch, definitely a game to look out for. Next up is Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. This is the sequel to the original Ni no Kuni, and it's a full-on action RPG. Now, the one before kind of had some like real-time elements, some action RPG elements, some turn-based elements, but this one really just went all in with the action RPG. And despite maybe some not thinking it's as good as its predecessor, I still think that it's a very good action RPG on the Nintendo Switch. It's got some strategy elements or town building elements as well when you get back to the kingdom, but the combat really just delves into some really cool aspects of what makes action RPGs great. You have great leveling systems, you've got smooth controls, you've got a bunch of different abilities to learn as well. Ni no Kuni does a good job of really stringing you along with the combat and giving you tool after tool after tool to use. And if you play it on the hard difficulty, because I think the normal is a little bit too easy, so if you play it on the hard difficulty, you're going to even get the most out of this game and what it does combat-wise. I think they actually really leveled things up quite a bit. So Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, one of the best action RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. Next up is Persona 5 Strikers, and you guys know what Persona is about when it comes to Persona 5 Royal, which is also on the Nintendo Switch and other systems, but Persona 5 Strikers is not turn-based. Of course, it is action, and it's all about the action, and that's what I love about Persona 5 Strikers. It takes all of the really cool things from the turn-based game. You would think that, oh, they're going to change it up a lot, and yes, there's a lot of changes, but there's a lot of stuff that you're going to remember too. So if you've played Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal, this is one of the smoothest transitions to a different style of play that I've ever seen. I've seen a lot rougher stuff out there when it comes down to it. Persona 5 Strikers does a great job of transitioning all the different demons and everything that you can do in Persona 5 Royal or in Persona 5 and making that into a very fun action RPG that really blends what the Warriors games do, then also adds in unique elements from Persona into this game. So I absolutely loved it. I felt that it was a fantastic game with tons of content, really fun characters to use, and a great story to boot as well. So if you want a really cool action RPG with a great story in the Persona universe, this is the game to pick up. Next up is another SuperGiant game, and that is Bastion. Now, this is one of those old school games that I played back on the Xbox 360, and I had to play it again on the Nintendo Switch because I really forgot about it. I just forgot about it, but it's still an incredible action RPG with a ton of different weapons and a lot of customization and a great story with a cool narration on top of it as well. Bastion is one of those games that, just like Transistor, that's on this list as well, once you beat it, you're going to be like, wow, that was interesting. Like, that really makes me keep thinking about the game for quite some time. And when I found out that it was on the Nintendo Switch, when I found out that it was first coming, I had to replay it. But yes, still one of the best, silkiest, smooth combat systems out there for an independent RPG. Has a lot of different weapons to pick up and use. Has a lot of different variety within the levels and how they design them. They just do a great job of making addictive gameplay that you're going to want to keep going in and in until pretty much you're done at that point. So I think Bastion to me is a little bit higher than Transistor when it comes to what they've done in the action RPG realm. So Bastion, fantastic action RPG on the Nintendo Switch. Make sure you check it out. Next up is Ys VIII Lacrimosa of Dana. Once again, another Ys title, and I think that Ys VIII Lacrimosa of Dana does so many things well. The music is fantastic, the mini games are really good, the combat is very fun, fluid, and fast. I think that the leveling up and what you get after you level up, that's very important for the RPGs to keep you playing, combined with the music and everything, and Ys VIII just has all of that down. I think that the boss variety and the different characters are also fun to use too, and at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about fun, it's about being a really great game, and Ys VIII Lacrimosa of Dana checks all the boxes for a fantastic action RPG and a ton of fun while you're at it. So it's one of those games that once you start playing, really it's kind of slow a little bit to kind of get into, but as you level up and learn more about the story and everything that's happening, it gets better and better as you go on. So a lot of mechanics open up, but it also gets just better and better. So it's one of those games that you definitely need to check out on the Nintendo Switch if you're looking for a fantastic action RPG. Next up, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Now, this is a game that I tried multiple times, and while it's not my favorite style of game out there when it comes to RPGs, I cannot sit here and ignore what this game did at the time that it did it, and really the barriers that it broke when it comes to a Western action RPG. It's a fantastic game for those that are willing to invest into the deep mechanics, and if you can get past some of the slowness or clunkiness of the combat on the Nintendo Switch, then I think that you're going to find a fantastic RPG that really utilizes everything. And the story, I think that's really what sets this apart. The voice acting, the story, that really melds really well, and it's a game that nobody felt was even possible on the Nintendo Switch, but here we are a number of years later, and it's still one of the best Western conversions of an RPG on the platform, hands down. Next up, Dark Souls Remastered. Now, there was questions whether this was actually remastered on the Nintendo Switch or not, but that's the name of the game, so we're gonna go with it. And it's still Souls. If you are into a punishing action RPG that's going to give you a lot of replay value, a lot of depth, and you're gonna die a number of times, then Dark Souls Remastered is your type of game. I think that Dark Souls, what it does really well is that it puts like the old chip in your brain, like what we're programmed as gamers to do in terms of overcoming something difficult. So if you played games back in the day where it was just punishing difficulty, or even like the arcade games because they wanted your quarters, this is like the modern conversion of that as a massive AAA RPG. That's exactly what Dark Souls is, and it's still very good on the Nintendo Switch with a number of options, a number of different ways to play, and tons of replay value, tons of ways to challenge yourself and different builds to have. So if you want a punishing action RPG where you're going to die a number of times and you're going to have to really overcome the challenges, check out Dark Souls Remastered. Next up is Trials of Mana. This is a remake of Seiken Densetsu 3 or Secret of Mana 3 that was never released originally on the Super Nintendo. It was only in Japan. They came out with the collection with the old school games, but then they decided to remake the third game in the series, and here we are. Trials of Mana is that typical Japanese action RPG that kind of does a lot of different things to kind of mix it up. You can pick multiple different characters, so you have multiple playthroughs. You can pick a main character with each one of those, and they can level up and get new classes and new abilities, and you go through to kind of see what's happening in this whole land. And of course, there is a great evil in everything. And what I love about Trials of Mana, for me at least, was the boss battles. I think the boss battles in this game were really fun, especially on the hard difficulty. It really made you use so many of your different abilities and really think carefully about your combinations and what you're going to bring into battle and how much you level up and what side quests you've done. There's a lot to explore in this game, and I think that it's fantastic how it all played out and how they got this game to even be made in the first place. It was a long time coming, but it was something that the fans deserved, and it's still a great game. It holds up very well, whether you're playing the classic one or you're playing the remake with Trials of Mana as well. Next up is Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen on the Nintendo Switch, and Dragon's Dogma is Capcom's Western / Japanese RPG take. Like, it has a lot of elements that they're trying to appeal to the West, which you can clearly see maybe a third-person Skyrim type of game, but then it also has those qualities of a Japanese RPG. It's a nice mix, and I think that Dragon's Dogma does a great job with the battle system and content. The Dark Arisen content in there, the updates that they have, it plays fantastic on the Nintendo Switch, and there's so much variety in terms of how you want to play your game. And I think that's the common thing with all of these great action RPGs, is they provide a lot of variety in the combat and in the content to provide something that is completely fun and unique and at a great price on the Nintendo Switch as well. It launched at a good price, and it's even cheaper now at this point. So if you're looking for a really cool Japanese / Western style RPG with a great story, great combat, great graphics as well on the Nintendo Switch, check out Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Next up is Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. This is a remaster make, because it's somewhere between a remaster and a remake of the original Crisis Core on the PlayStation Portable. And while it does have some varying effects with the cutscenes and other things, overall with the gameplay, even at 30 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch in 720p, it's still a fantastic conversion of the game and plays very well. The combat system has been upgraded to the fullest to kind of be more like Final Fantasy VII Remake, but still have that original Crisis Core feel to it. This was a portable game in the first place, so a lot of the design is portable. easy skirmishes to get in and out in when it comes to missions, being able to tackle missions even in the middle of a mission, so you can go do the micro missions in the middle of an actual mission at any save point. So these are the type of things that's kind of built in for portable style of games, and Crisis Core has that. It's got a great story, goofy main character with Zack, but you'll grow to love him, and then it also has really good graphics, like super good graphics in terms of what they've done to convert it over. I think it's one of the best on the Nintendo Switch, despite it being a PSP remaster. So if you want great combat, great story, goofy main character that kind of talks a bit weird, at least in the English version of the game, but there's Japanese audio as well, check out Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Next up, Diablo 3 Eternal Collection. This is a super packed content RPG with some exclusive Nintendo Switch stuff with the Ganondorf DLC stuff that they have on there. But if you want, once again, a great game that you can play online co-op, you can play local co-op, it's a ton of fun. Diablo 3 is that type of game with a lot of classes. It has all of the extra and bonus content in there, so many of the updates with all the different seasons. This game will take you hundreds of hours to kind of get through everything, and it could be a prep for Diablo 4 that's going to be coming out as well. That's not coming on the Switch, but if you wanted to play it, you know, portable anywhere that you want, I think that Diablo 3 is a great pickup. It plays smooth on the system too. It's not laggy or glitchy or has any of the issues that we've seen with some of the Western games on Nintendo Switch and just games in general. So Diablo 3 is a great pickup if you just want to have a little bit of mindless fun and just bash things to oblivion and have a ton of content with it. You can't really go wrong with Diablo 3 on the Nintendo Switch. Next up is Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, and this is probably my surprise game of 2022 because I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, but it really is that good. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes takes a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the things from Fire Emblem 3 Houses and evolves it and makes it even better and less tedious. And I talked about Persona and the transition from that game, how they transitioned everything from the turn-based RPG to an action RPG and how great that conversion was. I think that this is just as good, if not better, when it comes down to it, because I was floored by some of the mechanics that they upgraded and said, wait a minute, this is kind of more fun. Now, when it comes to the gameplay itself, it might not be better than Fire Emblem 3 Houses, but when it comes to everything surrounding that, the map, playability, ease of use, not being annoying when it comes to activity points on the harder difficulties, I think that Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes does an incredible job and completely surprising with how great the combat is. There's a lot of options, a lot of characters, there's a lot of ways to recruit and get them on your team that is just fun. This is a game that can be mindless at times, you know, you're just fighting tons of people over and over, but how they mix in with the different missions and the structure just makes it really varied and fun, and there's multiple different routes too. So there is quite a bit of replay value. So Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, fantastic game. A lot better than I even thought it was going to be. Next up is CrossCode, and this is another independent RPG that is fantastic. It's got a great art style, got a smooth frame rate, got a lot of options, got a lot of different things that you can do, and a surprisingly deep and good story as well. But make no mistake, CrossCode, it's all about the combat, baby, with the RPG stuff, and it is very good. I think what I loved about it the most was just the visceral feel botting people on the screen. Like, there's so much stuff popping up and there's so much variety with the old school flavor with it. I couldn't just help but say, man, this is one of the best RPGs that I've played as an old school action RPG fan, dating all the way back to the Secret of Mana days. It reminded me of that. Obviously faster paced, definitely very different, but it reminded me of that and put me back in that spot. So CrossCode is one of those RPGs that you can't miss. Next up is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim on the Nintendo Switch, and this is the Elder Scrolls. I mean, if you haven't played it, it's on like every single thing, even like Alexa devices and stuff like that. So if you haven't played it yet, it's on the Nintendo Switch. They also have like the enhanced version of it, like another one that came out. Either way, Elder Scrolls, it's out. It's the Elder Scrolls. It's got tons of content. It's got a lot of variety. It still has a very good battle system, kind of crusty at times here and there, but you can't deny what it does when it comes to everything that's included in this edition, with all the DLC, all the combat, all the content. And this is another one of the best Western RPG ports on the Nintendo Switch. It plays smooth, it's not laggy, the resolution holds up whether you're in portable mode or in docked mode, so I had to recommend it. And I know it's been out there for a decade plus, but the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is still a fantastic game. Next up is Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Golden Country. I am putting them together as one experience because that's essentially what it is. You have to buy them separately, but it's still one experience, and they're both fantastic. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is one of those games to where when you first start playing it, you're automatically enthralled with the scenery, with what they were able to do back in 2017 on the Nintendo Switch in its first calendar year. It was incredible. And then you start talking about the combat in the game and the depth, and it just keeps going. Now, there's some annoying things with the RNG blades, the rare blades that you get, and some of the other side stuff that you can do with all the different blades that are coming in. But if you can kind of get past that and really focus in on the combat in the game and how you're kind of managing things and how you're going from one thing to another and make sure that you're positioning yourself, then also doing different type of blade combos, it creates just a euphoria and a style of gameplay with the attacks and everything that really is not replicated. And I talked about it before with Final Fantasy XII on this list, and Xenoblade creates that same feeling but just heightened to the max. There's nothing else on the market like it. And if you're talking about Torna the Golden Country, this is a game that took a lot of the battle aspects of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and cut out so much of the fat, cut out so much fat and left a lot of just the meat, and it's really, really good. Now, there's some annoying things when it comes to the side quests that you have to do, but overall, the gameplay, the combat, the tutorial to teach you how to do that in Torna is unmatched. It is a very fun game, and it looks great as well, but I think the biggest thing with Torna is the story, and with Xenoblade 2, the story. They connect together, and it's beautiful. It's one of the greatest stories that I have ever played in an RPG, hands down. Next up is Warframe on the Nintendo Switch, and I'm telling you, this game would be one of my favorite games of all time if they actually made it where it wasn't a free-to-play type of game, and if it was just a regular gameplay, like I can go out there, buy a physical game, and it's like a 60-hour campaign or 40-hour campaign, and that's what it is. Some of the other stuff with this game just kind of annoys me, the free-to-play structure of it, but if you can get past that, this is one of those action RPGs that I played on the system for hours on end. It is smooth, it is good. You didn't expect it to be as good as it was because the graphics were what they were on other systems, but honestly, Warframe as a free-to-play game is incredible on the Nintendo Switch. The combat is fluid. I think that the upgrading is fun. I like the variety within the gameplay with melee weapons and pistols, and the movement options are just incredible. So Warframe, one of those games that might have been forgotten, but definitely not by me. It's a great action RPG. It's free to play. You can go download it right now. Next up, NieR Automata, the End of Yora edition. This is another one of those fantastic, impossible ports on the Nintendo Switch. But what makes NieR Automata, the End of Yora edition really good is the gameplay. It's Platinum Games. They have fantastic gameplay in here where they kind of mix it up with kind of like shooting elements and over-the-head shooter type of elements, and then also action RPG elements, that it has like an open world. I mean, there's so many different dynamic pieces to this game, but the gameplay is fantastic, but the story might even be better, where you're going to have to play the game multiple times to kind of get everything through. But it has New Game Plus, it has all the different options that make it a smooth transition to play it over. But for me, the combat is just one of those things that's just really, really good in this game. Like, once you get a hang of how everything moves with 2B and also with 9S and how you're playing in the game, then you really, really start cooking in this game, and you really just start creating an unstoppable android force. So to me, NieR Automata, the End of Your Edition, easily one of the best ports on the Nintendo Switch from Xbox and PlayStation, but also one of the best action RPGs released in modern history. Next up is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and this is a phenomenal action RPG on the Nintendo Switch. I think in some ways it's more simplistic than Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and other Xenoblade games, but that's also to its strength because there's so much depth in the base mechanics and where they all started. I think that, of course, the story is absolutely incredible, but I think the combat is where things really take it up and where you said, man, I've never played a game like this. The fact that you have the Monado that can see the future and you can completely reinvent what happens if someone dies, if someone survives, what's going on there. It created a gameplay experience that really isn't like anything else on the market. So Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, with the amount of content that it has, with the upgrades, with the quality of life features, I had to recommend it as easily one of the best action RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. Next up, Monster Hunter Rise. This is one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive RPG on the Nintendo Switch from a graphical perspective. What they were able to pull off with the RE engine on the Nintendo Switch was incredible, and the gameplay is just as good. So much variety, whether you're talking about Monster Hunter Rise or the Sunbreak DLC, so many different things to do in the game, so much different stuff to collect, different weapons to master, different monsters to farm, and really just level up, and the environments and the locales, in addition to the music, really just creates one of the most ultimate Monster Hunter experiences. And I think that for me at least, the speed of the game is what makes it so much better than other Monster Hunter games that I've played. The fact that you're able to use like this little wire bug thing and zip across, or you have your Palamute dog that you can use to climb up all different types of places, it just creates a fast-paced, action-heavy, super cool Monster Hunter game. And with the Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, the DLC, it even gets better, and there's even more content, and even the ability to hunt without other people and use NPCs from the village, so you can just play it that way if you want. So there's so much variety, there's so much different things to do, there's so much different weapon combinations. Heck, I didn't even know that I wanted to be an archer, but I'm an archer in the game, and it's fantastic. Or you can go with twin blades. There's all sorts of stuff to do in this game. Monster Hunter Rise is easily one of the best action RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. Next up is Astral Chain, and anytime that I talk about this game, when it comes to my list that I do, Astral Chain somehow finds a way to make it on there. Like, Astral Chain is the epitome of what a fantastic new IP from Platinum Games, if they have the time, the money, everything, and with the creative brains over there with Nintendo and them, they just created an absolute gem of an RPG. And to me, it's easily one of the best. It's one of the best. It creates an environment with the combat and with the different legions and with the upgrading and with the boss fights that's just really peak action RPG gameplay on the Nintendo Switch or any other system. There's no other game that I constantly think about more from this style than Astral Chain. I love Bayonetta, I love their other games and everything, but Astral Chain is the game that I constantly say, man, I really want there to be a sequel for the next Nintendo Switch or something, because the gameplay was just so great. Now, the story isn't necessarily the best, but it's not bad, and the replay value and the content and what you get in this game, everything all packed in on cartridge, no extra DLC, it's all there after you beat the game. All the achievements, all the different things, all the different upgrades, the game, it's all right there. And there's something awesome to be said about that, the fact that the game does it. So to me, Astral Chain, easily one of the top games on the system, one of the best action RPGs that I've ever played, and if you haven't tried it out, definitely go out there, pick it up right now. Last but definitely not least is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. This by far is one of those action RPGs that I still, after 200 plus hours, I'm like, oh man, I've got quite a number of things to do. Now, as of the time that I'm recording this video, there's still more DLC with the big expansion that's coming. That's going to be even crazier, but even with the base game, I was mesmerized by what they're able to accomplish as a true open world action RPG with seamless battles, with 7 people on screen, and all sorts of monsters and craziness. Now, there are some times where the resolution kind of gets a bit fuzzy in terms of things, but for the most part, it holds up. In addition to the frame rate as well, there's no other action RPG on the Nintendo Switch like this, with this amount of content, this amount of stuff that you can do with your party members, with 7 on screen with all the enemies, and seamless battles that just transition right into it. It's the most unique and one of the most technically impressive RPGs on the system, if not the most, and I love it for that. And the story, goodness gracious, if you've played Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2, and then you head into this one, this is going to be a trip. And even if you haven't, the story is self-contained enough to still be really good. The voice acting, the characters, the graphics, and the music is just absolutely sublime, especially the music. So many different variety in the tracks and the beat and the tempo and how it dynamically changes in battle based on what's happening. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is the epitome of the combat and story, and I feel that it needs to be experienced. This is easily one of the best action RPGs, if not the best action RPG that I've ever played. Alright guys, that's going to wrap it up for the best 25 action RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. Are there any games that you feel that should be on the list or on my next list for best action RPGs? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.